And welcome to Have I Got News for You? I'm Sean Locke, and in the news this week, in London, the man who sprayed graffiti onto the walls of the Treasury is forced to remove the words, "Gordon is gay." After another drug trial goes wrong, doctors say they're confident they've eliminated most of the side effects. In London, Charles Kennedy's comeback speech grinds to a halt when someone at the back opens a can of special brew. On Ian Hislop's team is the director of civil rights organisation Liberty, who recently revealed that in the mid-80s she was an active member of the Social Democrat Party. No, sorry, the active member of the Social Democrat Party. Please welcome Shami Chakrabarti. And with Paul Merton tonight, an actor who in BBC 4's The Thick of It plays the Prime Minister's spin doctor as a foul-mouthed, bullying Scot, a character in no way based on Alistair Campbell, as lawyers for the foul-mouthed, bullying Scot asked us to point out. Please welcome Peter Capaldi. And we start with round one. Ian Shami, take a look at this.
Ah, right. The Home Secretary, he hasn't resigned yet. Not on going to air. That's some people's passports. He's never seen one before. And that's his boss, who's sweating. It's been a bad week for Blair, really.
And the Home Secretary and the Prime Minister have been keeping us safe from dangerous people like me.
Yeah, that was the speech where he had a go at you lot, wasn't it?
We care too much about civil liberties. We're not in touch with realities of keeping people safe.
Whinging Liberals, you lot. It was bad timing for him, really, wasn't it? Having said the fact that we're all dangerously at risk from lunatics and terrorists was your fault, it then became clear it was his. Him having released about 1,000 foreign criminals back into the community on the grounds that they'd done their time and they didn't have to go home and they could re-offend immediately. I mean, God, there are 10,000 foreign people in the jails. I mean, no wonder they're overcrowded. That's quite a lot of foreign people in the jail, really.
I'd say it's about 10,000 of them.
Yeah. The papers were quite hysterical. The Mirror had murderers, rapists, killers, paedophiles free to commit crime on our streets. The Sun went with killers, rapists, pedos loose on British streets. And the Times went with Home Office in deportation fiasco. That'll get you panicking, wouldn't it, that?
Well, it's reasonable. I mean, I can't remember what the figures were. Was it 9 murderers, 3 rapists...
An alternative version of 5 Lords a Leaping.
Yeah. And a paedophile in a pear tree. But then Clark went into the House of Commons and said, you know, he'd got this under control. And then he had to go back and say, oh, I hadn't really. I was told about it and I just kept releasing them. Another 200 of them. Bye. You had a nice time in our jails, murdering that way. It is an unbelievable story. I mean,
is he really pointing out to murderers where they can murder next? This is going too far now. Yeah. He'll be stenciling old people next. Easy to rob on their foreheads. Not as quick as they used to be.
He also said he offered his resignation to the Prime Minister. And the Prime Minister said no, because that would set a precedent, wouldn't it? If you had to resign for being utterly useless. Very thin cabinet, wouldn't it? Good morning, gentlemen. No, it's just me. In fact, not even him.
And who else has had a bad week in the cabinet? I mean, not the obvious main course to come, but...
Yes, it was a week of 3 cock-ups, only 1 literal. Patricia Hewitt?
Patricia Hewitt, yes. She went to the Health Service Union's conference. This is how her speech went.
The biggest job evaluation scheme in the world.
Rubbish. Absolute rubbish.
You can tell me about it in a moment. We've got to get the new knowledge and skills framework in place by October. It's agreed with...
You're joking!
I want to hear about that too. That's not privatisation, it's progress. Once again, truly the envy of the world. Thank you.
I think she should have finished on a song.
Poor woman. I mean, that's not how you deal with hecklers. They normally cart them out of there, don't they? When there are not enough police or something.
Saying, why don't you understand the new job opportunity framework, which involves you being sacked, is very exciting.
Now, it's the admission by Home Secretary Charles Clarke that over 1,000 foreign criminals have escaped deportation. They're now at large, thanks to the Home Office's new Don't Care in the Community scheme. Charles Clarke has been accused of not having his ear to the ground, which is a terrible waste of a huge natural asset. Health Secretary Patricia Hewitt was booed after claiming the NHS has had its best year ever. She claimed, "We have written a very big cheque for the NHS, and a delighted GP in the Shetlands is cashing it as we speak." Paul and Peter, take a look at this.
Yes.
This is...
5 minutes' time. Yes,
I've got this little place just around the corner.
Oh.
Bless.
love. Oh, he's sweating a bit. John Prescott, isn't it, has disappointed his many fans.
Yes, there's been some office party snaps
Yes.
printed of him doing some gymnastics with...
Yeah, exactly, yes.
With his secretary.
They met in 2002 at an office party. And,
That's almost a film.
Yeah.
2001: A Space Odyssey, 2002, An Office Party. The boring sequel. What happens when you come back from the planet? Well, actually, it was very nice up there, you know.
Well, apparently he was wooing her for quite some time. He was trying to attract her attention. Once he sprang out in front of her and pulled a funny face.
Was it his face or passerby's?
We're not sure. We're not sure which funny face it was. Whether it could be this funny face, or this one, or even this one. It looks like he's trying there, doesn't it?
Yeah, he is. Yeah. But he's always displaying himself like a peacock using beer tins.
Yeah.
Does he come at her like that with pie wrappings and just bits of food he's been eating that catches her eye, like a peacock?
Yeah.
Does he do that?
No, he doesn't do that.
Does he?
Well, there's civil liberties for Mr Prescott, isn't there, you know?
Does this include the right to shag your secretary in public buildings like Admiralty Arch?
I thought that was a position.
They've had a bit of a problem, the opposition, this week, haven't they? Because Cameron can't really go for him, because he's got bonking Boris on the front bench. And the Lib Dems can't go for him. So everyone's sort of putting on that long, very serious face and saying, this is a private matter. I really think that John and Pauline should be allowed to sort this out themselves. As opposed to saying, God, look at him. The fat twit. Prescott is the man who was the first in with the Tory sleaze allegations. He made absolute hay. He made jokes when any Tory was caught at it. And guess what? It's him. And what does he do? The classic. It's the secretary in the office at a Christmas party. Well, good thing he's not a cliché, then.
Well, I imagine soon we'll see photocopies of his bum somewhere. Probably need 2 photocopiers, but... And what else has been revealed about Prescott this week?
Did he go on a diet or something? I mean, this is before Wednesday. He was on a sort of keep fit regime.
That's right, yeah.
He was sort of doing more exercise, clearly.
Yeah. But the Cabinet Office explains he works out on his own, not according to the Mirror. He doesn't. His spokesman said, I'm not saying if he wears a string vest or cycling shorts or whatever. It will only be turned into a joke. And here's how The Sun illustrated the story. Well, in case there's any misunderstanding, The Sun have pointed out this picture is, in fact, mocked up.
Well, that's not really his head.
This is the news that Deputy Prime Minister John Prescott has been knocking off Charles Clarke from the front pages. John Prescott's affair with the Secretary came as a surprise to his colleagues. According to the Mirror, the two of them were caught together in a lift. presumably when the excess load alarm went off. The mirror revealed at a Christmas party he gathered her up in his arms and twirled her around in the air. Serves her right, pushing in front of him in the buffet queue. The affair started over a romantic dinner, with Prescott whispering sweet nothings. I love you, sausage. You're my little dumpling. Oh, hello, love. Sorry, I started without you. Ian and Shami, this story was almost as big.
That's the Blairs.
Hair.
Kennedy. Oh, that's Star Trek people.
Trek.
Oh, so's that. And someone's sweating
Sweating.
again. This is expensive, isn't it?
The price of spin and grooming and campaigning, and it's an expensive business.
Star Trek suits.
Absolutely.
And Cherie's hair.
Well, she's worth it, you know.
7,700.
Well, you know, it cost that much tonight.
Yeah, mine too.
Yes, but that involves a search fee.
The amount they spent on their hair. Cassandra Howard spent 65 quid.
Yeah.
And Cherie spent 7,000. And it, of course, it'd be unfair to compare them, so let's have a look. Cassandra, 65 quid. Mind you, at that point, she'd only spent about £3,500. So...
There's some very peculiar things. There were some groundhog people. The parties had this thing about getting people to dress up in amusing suits and run round after people. It's like Groundhog Day with you lot in power.
The thing is, they spent £3,500 to make them look like groundhogs. They're two different animals, for starters, aren't
Well, no, that's the same animal, but the one on the left's clearly taken some highly powerful drugs. And the other one's pissed off because he hasn't got any.
Yeah. Michael Howard spent £3,000 on makeup.
What's that, sort of garlic and...
Well, the Sun pointed out how he might look with a bit of slap.
That was my favourite moment of election night, when they were doing his constituency, and Paxman said, over to the count at Folkestone and High.
This is the weird and wonderful election expenses incurred by the three main parties during the last election. The figures show that a total of £75,000 was spent upgrading John Prescott's battle bus by adding a waterbed, mirrors on the ceiling and strengthening the rear suspension. Cherie Blair spent no less than £7,700 on her hair, although most of that went on the rope, the hedge and the tractor to drag her backwards. The Mirror revealed that one of Charles Kennedy's expense claims included a note to the hotel staff which read, Mr Kennedy requires a full set of newspapers by 6:30 a.m, preferably old ones, spread out by the side of the bed.
Cruel.
Next to the bucket. Paul and Peter, have a look at this.
OK. There's David Cameron. Oh, yes, this was the photo opportunity of last week. And it's actually quite clever, because those dogs are running away from him. But by sticking a sledge in the middle, it makes it look like he's... And there he is, he's staying...
Gone down a hole.
Yeah, down a hole. And somebody's sweating again.
This is...
Global warming, that is.
Yes.
This is David Cameron going off to, what was it, Greenland? Or the North
Norway?
Pole, or somewhere
Norway.
like that. Yeah, to show that he was sort of very kind of environmentally aware.
He was criticised for taking a private plane.
Yes.
It emitted 20 tonnes of carbon dioxide.
Will you plant trees now? If you're going on holiday somewhere and you're going on a plane, you can ring someone up and say, will you plant a forest for me? This is true. To cover up my emissions.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if everyone did that, there'd just be trees everywhere, no airports, would there? Well, the planes would be crashing into trees. Any other stunts were lined up for Eco Dave this week?
There's a big debate about whether his car is green enough or big enough or small enough.
No, he took an eco-friendly car for a drive. It's called the G-Whiz, and he drove it around a disused airfield for a photo opportunity.
That's only half a car.
Yeah.
That's why it's low on emissions.
And we've got a picture here of the car he actually drove to the airfield in. This is David Cameron's attempt to prove his green credentials by jetting off on a private plane to visit a shrinking glacier in Norway. Cameron's glacier trip was intended to create a powerful image which the Tory party could be associated with, though perhaps it was a mistake to choose something which is gradually eroding and will soon disappear altogether. During his trip, David Cameron experienced temperatures of minus 20 degrees, cold, but nowhere near as chilly as the Prescott's breakfast table. And so to round 2, a variation on the picture spin quiz. This week we've got 2 pictures. It's a twin picture spin quiz. It's the picture, spin, twin spin. How else can I explain it? Fingers on buzzers.
But this is people standing up on the plane. There's a new idea that you can get more people onto these super jets that they're building. You get 900 people on if basically you strap them in standing up. Apparently, there's no rule to say you can't, you know, as long as they're sort of secured, that's what you have to be. Passengers have to be secured. Doesn't even say inside the plane. You can be tied to the wing.
Designers called the experience a cross between a busy commuter train and a wall of death fairground ride.
That's what you're looking for when you're up in the air, isn't it?
That'll calm down those nervous flyers.
Yeah.
It creates more room in first class, apparently.
Yes.
The Times said that the new 380 Airbus will feature a library, a lounge and a flat-screen waterfall.
How'd you take the books back? You got them for 3 weeks? That sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, there's drawbacks.
Drawbacks, really? What?
Yeah.
What could they be?
Well, you'd have to make the cabin taller and the backsides of people are in different places, so they would have to have adjustable... I don't know if their backsides are supposed to be adjustable, but...
What do you mean their backsides are in different places? Well, behind... Sir, madam, your bum is behind your ear.
Yeah.
With British Airways, it definitely would be.
You back your arse yourself, sir. We can't find it, we can't find it. Give him somebody else's. That one there, it matches, give him that. Sitting... Well, I was going to say sitting as your luggage comes round, but of course you can't do that because you're waiting for your arse to come round. Off you go.
In an attempt to cram greater numbers onto their flights, some airlines are considering strapping passengers to padded boards so they'd be flying standing up. Seems a bit silly resorting to measures like this when there's still space in the overhead lockers. Fingers on buzzers for your next pictures.
I've no idea.
Right.
A special new perfume for people who want to watch the World Cup.
Well, it's close, very close, yeah.
Official perfume of the World Cup.
Well, not necessarily the World Cup. It's a range of scents aimed at football fans to give them smells that they find familiar from football. There's also, on a sporting theme, what's being phased out over the next 3 years?
Grandstand.
Grandstand, yeah. Do, 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 yeah.
Yes. It's a shame they never went with that music, isn't it? We were still watching it, that was the theme tune.
Yeah. But there were some very notable highlights over the years. There was obviously the World Cup final.
Yes.
On Grandstand.
Yeah.
And this April Fool's Day fake fight behind Des Lynam in the 80s.
All these events live on the programme. And, of course, this is the time of year when the League Championship will be settled, the cricket season's about to get underway, and flat racing gets fully into its stride. We'll continue to do our best to cover sport in the way that you like, backed up by our highly professional team.
This is the Lancashire company which is offering armchair football fans the chance to recreate the scent of the game in their living rooms. World Cup scents will include all the familiar aromas of... World Cup scents will include all the familiar aromas of football, including the tempting... It's not that funny, this one.
Well, it's not now you've said it 4 times. I mean, this is the most exposure this product's ever going to get.
Yeah. World Cup scents will include all the familiar aromas of football, including the tempting smell of half-time pies, the pungent smell of the dressing room and the sweet smell of success. Not available in Scotland.
No need for that, was there?
After 48 years, the BBC has finally decided to kill off Grandstand. It's going to be presented by Davina. Fingers on buzzers for your next pictures.
It's an big inflatable toy. It's a hotel. Somebody wants to put an inflatable hotel into outer space. That's the idea. You fly it up into outer space in tiny little bits, inflate it when you're up there, and then you say to people, come and stay in our inflatable hotel. and they say, what? Because they're on Earth and they can't hear you. Then you say, come and stay in an inflatable hotel, and then they say, yes, how much is it? And you say, I don't know.
Where will it be?
In space.
Yeah, but where in space? It's a big place.
Up there.
Yeah. It's going to be 250 miles above the Earth's surface.
Yeah, that's in space, yeah.
Yeah. But the brochure puts it conveniently located for the city centre. How does he plan to get it up there?
Well, it doesn't matter what his plan is. It's never going to happen.
And do you know what happens to the hotel after 2 years?
It
closes down through lack of business.
No, it just burns up.
So I shall imagine that last week of the 2 years is fairly cheap to go on holiday there, really.
Off-peak.
Off-peak, definitely off-peak, yeah.
Hotel guests will be blasted into space at hundreds of miles an hour by a state-of-the-art rocket. There will then be a short coach transfer to the hotel. Which means at the end of this round, it's Ian and Shami with 5, Paul and Peter with 6. Next up, it's the odd one out round, and the 4 are Mohammed Al-Fayed, Frankie Howard's wig, the Blue Peter time capsule, and Yorick.
Frankie Howard's wig, I think, is the clue here, because they recently, a couple of weeks ago, I think they opened up his house to the public, and one of the things on display was his wig, which he had it throughout his life, really. So he looked quite good in 1948, but by the end it looked a bit rough. And they buried it at a time, I think, and then dug it up again recently. So that's what it must... So there's things that have been dug up.
That's right.
Frankie Howard's wig, Yorick, obviously, and... Blue Peter time capsule, they put it down in the earth about 1975 and dug it up again about the year 2000 or something.
Yeah, in the Blue Peter garden.
Mohammed Al-Fayed must be the odd one out because he doesn't want to be buried, he wants to be mummified or stuffed in a glass cabinet. Top of Harrods, isn't he? He's going to be on display.
That's the right answer. The answer, they've all been exhumed apart from Mohammed Al-Fayed, who doesn't even want to be buried. He said he wants to be mummified and attached to a clock outside Harrods. And if you just, in case you can't imagine how that would look, the Sun came up with this.
Oh, I see. I thought you meant like a cuckoo clock. He comes up and...
Imagine living opposite.
Well, exactly.
Every hour.
You could just hold your fist there, couldn't you?
So, Frankie Howard's wig was exhumed to be put on display when his house was open to the public last weekend.
Yeah.
But does that mean it was buried? Was it
separate,
like in his coffin or something?
No,
I think it was
separate.
buried... They had a little ceremony, didn't they? They buried it in the garden, I think.
Yeah, it was buried by Cilla Black and Bruce Forsyth in a ceremony following his death. And it was, in fact, in a biscuit tin.
Come on, we've all been to wig ceremonies.
The wig was dug up by Frankie's former lover, Dennis, and his new boyfriend. 2 gay men approaching Frankie's final resting place in the middle of the night. Well, it's what he would have wanted. Digging up the Blue Peter time capsule was a momentous occasion, but it wasn't until they were bringing up Shep's bones that Peter Purvis said, I think we've got the wrong map. Ken Dodd once played Yorick in Kenneth Branagh's version of Hamlet. That's according to his CV. According to his tax return, he was at home painting his house. Time now for our Missing Words round, which this week features guest publication Pipetting News. In a recent edition, a request for interesting and amusing anecdotes about pipettes resulted in reader Gary Cameron's hilarious reply. I'm still using a P200 with the serial number B80-10817. Gary, you're bonkers! Have a look at this. Often handled roughly, what has a lot to cope with?
John Prescott's secretary. The bendy pipette.
Just straight pipette.
A pipette.
Yeah, a pipette.
We established what a pipette's used for.
Yes.
What is it?
It's for picking up small amounts of liquid in an experiment and moving them over there. Did you never use a pipette when you were at school doing experiments?
I don't want to talk about it.
Pipetting News have recently announced we are bringing you our first word search after our pipetting crossword proved so popular in issue 6. So I've had a go at it, and I'm absolutely stuck on 8 down. Used for transferring small amount of liquid. Next, what to be made out of Lego?
Inflatable hotel man has rethink.
Connected to a big, famous book.
The Bible?
Yes. Bible scenes. This is the Brick Testament website created by a priest in San Francisco which aims to make the Bible more accessible. The website illustrates many stories from the Bible using the famous coloured bricks. There's a pivotal scene from the Old Testament story of the wicked cities of Sodom and Gomorrah.
That's John Prescott at the front, look. Left as you look at it.
Next up, boss gets revenge by what?
Cabinet reshuffle.
He named something after somebody he was upset with, one of his staff he was upset with.
Oh, is this celebrity massage?
Or you sort of go into one of these little parlours somewhere and you find it's David Dimbleby behind the counter. With his brother there, dressed identically.
Would you like the full massage, or...?
The full Dimbleby.
I'll give you an election special.
Indeed, yeah. Let's look at the old swingometer. And how's your pipette today, madam?
He named a horse Emma Told Lies, after an employee who took him to a tribunal. Next, 15-year-old pupils use pipettes to what?
To advance our knowledge of the pipette and see it as more of an intrinsic tool in today's world rather than a stupid word with "et" written on the end of it.
Is it to squirt each other with water?
No, it's what they're meant for.
For chemical...
Chemical experimentation.
Yeah, to carry out scientific experiments.
Oh.
No, that's a trick question, isn't
It's
it?
pipetting news!
But that's not news, is it?
That's a headline, isn't it?
That's the status quo. You can't
used for
just
it.
print the status quo and call it news.
That's not fair.
You know.
At a recent conference, Professor Thomas at the Institute of Grassland Research was presented with a gold commemorative pipette. He was later ejected from the conference, screaming, 25 bloody years? Where's my f***ing Rolex? So the final scores are Ian and Shami have 9, Paul and Peter have 11. On which note, we say thank you to our panellists, Ian Hislop and Shami Chakrabarti, Paul Merton and Peter Capaldi. And I'll leave you with news that the winner of Saudi Arabia's pop idol unsuccessfully tries to disguise herself with a pair of dark glasses. The producer of the BBC's consumer rights programme, Watchdog, begins to regret last week's expose of cowboy plumbers. And at Westminster, Boris Johnson gives an exclusive interview to a female journalist. Good night.
Just look who's back. Mel and Griff together again, showing off their funny bits, not to be missed. The Smith and Jones sketchbook exploding onto your screen next here on BBC One Wales. And later, Justin Hawkins, David Morrissey, Dennis Waterman and Amanda Redman with Jonathan Ross at 10:35.
I could murder a pipette. I don't know about the rest of you.
And you can listen to highlights from Have I Got News For You on BBC CD, and there's now a second volume of the best of the guest presenters available.